evening. It is 5:34 p.m. on November 2nd. After multiple tries with our recording equipment, we are here. It's the Economic Development Commission. In attendance, we have MJ DeRizio, Sherry Cody, Jean Wilczynski, John Stratton, Joe Kamian, Cheryl Poirier, and Mona Colwell. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. We're missing, Wendy Russell will be late. And I'm going to read an email I received from Dave Robino on October 31st. Please allow this email to confirm my resignation from the EDC. Since COVID restrictions lessened in early spring, I have been traveling to D.C. weekly and abroad with some level of frequency, having just returned from 3 weeks in Central Asia, for example. This schedule has not allowed me to be physically present for EDC meetings, and I think the EDC will be better served with someone else filling my seat. Thank you for your understanding and good luck moving forward, Dave. So we appreciate the time Dave has given to the EDC during his term, and we wish him well. We therefore have one opening, so we would encourage anyone interested in being considered for appointment to the Economic Development Commission to submit an application to the Selectman's office. All right. First order of business after our welcome is approval of the October 5th meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the October 5th meeting minutes?
So moved.
I'll second that. And Sherry seconding it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Noes? Abstentions? Very good. The meeting minutes are approved. Thank you to Jen, our clerk, for doing those meeting minutes.
Yes.
Okay, next we have our activity on October 22nd, which included 2 ribbon cuttings at Homeward and at the Chocolate Shell, which included an appreciation for Barbara Crowley, who retired from the Chocolate Shell. And we also, as a commission, visited some other businesses on Lime Street: Cooley Gallery, Richard Freeman, Artemisia, the Lily Tile, Nightingale's Cafe. Have I left anyone out?
I think that was it.
It was a whirlwind morning.
Awesome.
It was really
And well attended. And it was really a nice day, and everybody was thrilled to see it. So.
Yeah, I felt it went well. And I want to thank John for taking photos all morning. We had a couple of articles in Limeline sharing information on the 2 ribbon cuttings that took place. And then I'm in the process of writing up something about the artisans that we visited, the Lily Tiles and everyone.
I want to say that I do have more photographs, like incidental ones, close-ups, things like that, which I did not send.
Okay.
But they exist.
Okay, I will check in with you if I could use some of those.
Okay, you can definitely use them. I didn't want to flood you with 16 megabyte image shots. I can only really send one at a time.
Yeah, they were large photos. Yeah. So, and that's always great because you never know how you're going to use those photos.
What they're going to become.
Right.
But if you want me to shrink them, I can shrink them, reduce file size.
Yeah, they were very helpful. Thank you. All right, anything else on the ribbon cuttings?
Can you post all those photos on People of Old Lyme or anywhere like that and just say, we had a wonderful day?
The 2 ribbon cuttings went on to People of Lyme. I think Olwen actually shared them, the editor.
In the Limeline story.
Limeline.
But in the additional photos or anything like that, just to keep it fresh.
We could figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
One thing we run into is that the Old Lyme, the town website, they like to consider, are we promoting one business over another business and being fair to everybody? So we'll have to think that one through. But it's a good idea to really share those photos. And we'll have photos in the article that I write about the visits on Line Street, and we can put that on Explore Old Lyme as well. So,
Is the QR code on People of Old Lyme?
no, but every so often I see a question on there, like maybe someone is looking for places to kayak, and I always say, oh, go to Explore Old Lyme, and I give them the link and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we could do more promotion on social media that way. Okay, the Halls Road overlay proposal. Are people familiar with the materials I sent out earlier this week? There was a Halls Road presentation that Evie, I think, made in August to the Zoning Commission, and a letter asking for support. So she has asked that the EDC consider making a public comment during the zoning meeting to share our support of having the overlay district approved by zoning. So I guess what I can do is open it up to comments, and I think our goal is to vote on A, if we're going to make a comment, and I'm happy to deliver the comment, and B, what we want included in that comment, because I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the EDC without everyone's agreement on what we're saying. So any thoughts?
Well, I haven't seen a single financial piece of information about this project to date, and I've asked for it. So that bothers me, since we are economic development. Like, I'd like to see the costs and the benefits of it. 5 years out, 10 years out, optimal, worst case, don't care. But I've seen nothing. So right now, it's all just a concept. So I like the concept, but I'm not sure I am going to stand up there and stick my neck out for, let's go, great guns on this.
Yeah, and I don't know that this particular vote they're having at zoning regards anything that would include spending money. It doesn't have to do with the bridge, and it doesn't have to do with improving the sidewalks. It's just about how people can redevelop their property.
Right, but the mission of the Halls Road Committee, as I understood it, was to implement this kind of plan in concert with whoever was interested in developing the property. So if it's private money, I'm all for that. But if there's any bonding or grant money where we match, and I'm always hesitant on the money side.
Yeah, they're not including anything like that.
No, I think it's
No. An overlay district is just, it's more zoning. It's just encouraging development, maybe a little bit more flexibly.
I learned that lesson. I
than
understand the
previous.
concept.
Yeah.
I just don't want any impression that we are supporting this plan. The district change, the zoning change is what they're asking for, and I would stay with the plan, because the plan has been very carefully crafted, and a lot of time has gone into it, and the concept is fine, which is what led them to need or find that an overlay district would be a smoother path to accomplishing their goal, which is fine. But I don't want them to think that we're saying yes, yes, yes on each and every one of these little components that they have, because the plan is very large.
We're not endorsing, in other words, a specific building in a specific place,
Correct.
but
The
rather
concept.
the idea that if you're going to have buildings, they should be in a certain
Right.
pattern.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know her map has the bridge in it, and then some of the buildings around the corner, which are now going to be part of the, what was that other district they asked for? The Arts District? What was that? So I'm sure they've refined that in their
I think so,
pitch, but,
yeah.
there was
Okay, boundaries.
a boundary issue, and I believe Edie spoke up at that meeting about the name of the plan and all of that.
Right.
confuse them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Joe?
not that we want to do weasel words, but could you say that the EDC is substantially supporting the elements of the plan, which is, I mean, to put it in short words, you're taking what was a highway-centric strip mall evolution and steering it towards a mixed-use evolution.
I would leave adverbs out of my
But
comments all the
I
time.
actually,
Highly.
I don't agree with it. I mean, I think it's all private property. I don't like the overlay idea. I don't like restricting people's private use. I don't see any names of any business owners on this list of the committee. And that's what concerns me. Like, I've spoken with some of the people that own those buildings, and they are not for this. And it's like, it would be like somebody coming into our neighborhood and saying, you know, we're going to change your neighborhood and now it's going to be this. It's going to be commercial. And so that's my biggest concern, is the people that own those buildings, they are not for this. If we had their support, I would feel comfortable. But as economic development, the people that own these buildings, they're driving that economy and they are not for this.
So my understanding is that was an issue the first time they went to zoning, and now it's much more flexible. So you can keep the footprint, if you will, of your building, or you have an option of redeveloping or rebuilding further up to the road. That's my understanding of it.
That's how I read it, too.
Yeah.
I haven't been to the presentations, but just reading what you sent, it seemed like you had, that it was a flexible either or, that it allowed and encouraged the newer,
Can we get statements from the people that own the properties if they're for it or against it?
good luck. My landlord lives in Norwalk, so he doesn't involve himself in any of this. I don't even think he knows about it.
And they can speak up in I'm assuming it's a public hearing.
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
The first part of it. Mm-hmm.
Well, perhaps like you, I've talked to people who say, I don't want any of that, but they have no idea what it is.
Right.
And what it is. And if it's, as Joe put it nicely, a movement toward mixed use, a movement toward bringing things closer to the highway. An individual does not have to do that, but this is guidance that says it's okay to do that.
Well,
Yes, to do it.
some of the shop owners would clearly like to be in a nicer building with more visibility, and they love the concept, but they don't own the property.
Right.
And then the, I don't know what else to call it, other than the hideaway property,
Shopping center.
that, whatever that is. They had 3 active bidders in their auction, and the owner refused all of them because there was a minimum, and that's what they wanted. So,
Are you referring to the so-called Chapman Shopping Center?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, that's
Well, they
what-
both were, really, weren't they?
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, and so I don't know how she's going to budge. I mean, she'll die eventually, but I don't know if that's part of the Halls Road plan. When she dies, we'll go find a buyer who wants to move everything forward. And then I can't imagine her wanting to have buildings. Well, she owns the property, so how can she have someone erect a building up on the front side of the road without a variance? I don't know how it all works. The concept is fine. I'm not disagreeing with the concept. I'm just saying I cannot support a specific plan, and I think that would be confusing to most people, that they think this is a plan and this is
Yeah.
how it's going to look.
Correct.
And I don't think that's the impression we want to give.
Yeah, looking at the presentation, Mona, the earlier village district, zoning district proposal caused nonconformity issues for existing buildings in the district. That's no longer the case. What this does is people can keep their use and their building where it is, or it adds, they can do the move forward, and they could add mixed use. So there can be some apartments or condos there as well. And that's currently not allowed in the commercial district.
I think they kind of summed up, there's a little table that's in there about use groups,
Mm-hmm.
and basically saying that multifamily would be allowed, and it's not allowed now. Gas stations, no.
I
At a
saw
gas
that,
station, yeah.
that all that is fabulous, but if I owned either of those shopping centers, I don't know if I would encourage somebody to put a building up in front of me and I'm in the back. I don't know, I'm just thinking practically.
If
that's what we're-
if they own the property, they'd have to sell the property to
That's
do
their
that.
own, yeah, their own
No, this overlay district would give them permission to construct another building on the front of the road.
The
is my
building, the
understanding.
property owner.
Coverage increases, the property owner, correct?
Right, so they wouldn't be upset that someone's building in front of them. They're
They
the
own
ones
the
making that
property.
decision.
Yes, but I'm saying, would those property owners really make that decision when their revenue, their cash flows are coming from what's behind it now?
Then they don't have to do anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think they could make more money by appropriate structures being built. in
Yeah,
the-
but we're being logical. There's no logic
Yeah,
about
I
that.
mean, I just think that, first, I haven't supported this project from the get-go. I mean, I'll just be honest with that. I went to the very first meeting, I thought it was ridiculous because my husband and I moved here because we like a small downtown, we really do. And we didn't like the idea to begin with, and we didn't like the way that they went about the idea, and I don't like people infringing on other people's property. I don't want somebody to come and tell me what to do on my property. If I were a property owner, I wouldn't want somebody telling me what to do. I wouldn't. I don't like this idea at all. I just don't think it's the town's place to tell other people what to do. If somebody owned the plaza and they wanted mixed use, they should be pursuing that opportunity.
But they can't
They
say.
can't right now, that's the issue.
Right.
If the current zoning doesn't allow that.
They go to zoning and
Because
petition
it's
it.
commercial only. You cannot have mixed use there today. You can't put an apartment upstairs.
But does the overlay zone change that, or does it give them the option of doing that, and they'd still have to go to zoning, and zoning would grant them the variance under the new overlay rules?
It's not, that would not be a variance. That would be part of the overlay. It would be allowed.
So it would actually help them because then they wouldn't have to go to zoning for that
Yes.
approval.
They would have more
For that
options
variance
than
approval.
they
Just
do
for
now.
clarity then, when we were at the other meeting for the overlay zone for the arts people,
Mm-hmm.
they insisted that they would still need to get variances for certain things that they wanted to do, even though those things were defined in their overlay zone concept. I don't understand where these differ now, how the two
I don't know
overlays-
enough about that arts district.
Yeah, be careful.
in town.
I don't know, Anyway, I still stand by my thing. I don't want to support this specific design, outline, whatever you want to call it, because they talk about this all the time, which is important to enable people to understand what kind of changes we can make under the overlay zone. But I don't want people to be confused that they're two separate things. There's approval of the zoning change, and there's a future plan yet to be defined.
Right, and this meeting is just about the zoning commission deciding whether or not to allow additional uses on Halls Road,
Yeah.
which would be multi-use and multifamily, or
So are you crafting
Is that
a
right?
letter, or you...
That what you just said does not interfere with Mona's view at all, because it gives more options to the property owner, not fewer. As long as it's not requiring people to do exactly what that picture is, requiring people to do that.
So it's actually not changing the zoning from one to the other. It's allowing a new overlay. So in other words, people who want the current zoning are allowed to keep that, as I understand it. But if they wanted to do some of the other things that the overlay allows, they're also allowed to do that. So it provides actually, like John said, a little more flexibility for property owners, not less. And not more restrictive, actually less restrictive than the current zoning.
it gives them an additional option.
Right. I mean, the building I'm in has a third floor, which I don't think is currently allowed, so it's unfinished. I could walk up and put a whole new space up above my office, and there are stairs, and framed out to do
No,
that.
I used it for storage, for blueprint storage.
Yeah, but I
my
think it's
engineering
not,
practice
it's
did.
not allowed to, I don't think they can finish it, even if they wanted to, under the current rules. If someone had their office there and wanted to live upstairs, I don't think they could do that.
I think it goes into the height, because I believe
Yeah.
what's allowed now is 35 feet. And if you really wanted to make it a third floor, you need 40 feet.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they changed. I'm just looking at it. They increased the height from 35 to 40. They've allowed 3 stories instead of 2.5.
Right.
I think that's actually considered a half story,
You're
so
probably
you could
right.
finish it.
It'd be a tiny space that would actually qualify with the pitched roof, but.
In the committee letter, the last paragraph says that they're actively seeking grants to implement the public improvements called for, blah, 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 that whole paragraph. Is that part of, how does that?
That's not part of this zoning meeting.
Okay, well, that's what's in
And
the
then the
Yeah.
other thing, Mona, speaking to your concern, I mean, right now, the setback from Halls Road, minimum is 60 feet, would go down to 0.
Yeah.
They just picked up 60 feet of property for the whole frontage that each of them own. That's worth a lot. But it is.
I think adding the mixed use and allowing residential is key. And I support you
I
going
support
and
it.
speaking in favor.
I just
I'm
think whatever
uncomfortable
your
with the
statement is, has to be short and sweet. No commentary,
You
no,
can't get into the weeds.
No.
Just,
No.
as I said, we substantially.
just say conceptually, we support an overlay zone to allow
More flexible.
more flexible development on Halls Road.
I mean, if you want to, addressing Mona's concern, being fair, you could say, subject to no constraints from existing conditions on any property owners, if you want to address it that way. Because you're not really imposing any.
I mean, I don't care, I'm opposed, I mean, it doesn't, I'm just one voice.
No, it's.
I'm just-
Well, no, we're,
Yeah, I mean, I am, I mean, there's no convincing me, there's like no, I don't think that this project was done fairly, I don't think it was done in the best interest of the business owners, I think that the people that I've spoken to that own these properties, they were not for this, and there's no limit even changing the zone, what could potentially happen. Let's just say in a hypothetical world, everybody sells their property, and then all of a sudden, you've got bazillions of dollars that get dumped in there, and you get people from, somewhere else that want to just dump all this money in there and build it up, and then next thing you know, I go to get on the highway and I can't even get down Halls Road. I mean, it could happen, maybe not in our lifetime, but it could. And that's not why I moved to Old Lyme. I mean, I moved here because I love the small town, and so the idea of what this could be, I don't believe that it could bring economic development. I grew up in Wilton, Connecticut. There was a bunch of people about 30 years ago that really pushed for downtown investments, and it is not the same anymore, and it never helped the residential property taxes. The property taxes are 3 times what they are here in town. So if people think that they're doing it because it's going to be good for the taxes base, it's not. I just think if the business people wanted to do it, then they should be able to do it. There's other places where people could be building things. I don't know.
Well, then I wonder how that impacts the people on Lime Street with all their charming little stores, because now you've got a destination that people can drive to. They can live there, they can shop there, they can do whatever. So now, it's just a strange balance.
If I may add, the charming little stores that have had considerable weight against them from zoning and
believe me.
the historic district.
Believe me, I know.
I guess I would say part of the plan to have sidewalks, to go from thick, charming little stores over to some of that other area.
Right.
I've tried to go across the street to Long River Local. You take your life in your hands. There's no
question.
crosswalk, there's no
Should not
sidewalk.
have taken 3 years. I mean, that is, like, simple things like that should never have taken this long, but it's that this project started out so complicated and had to get, put down to where it is now, and it's like, everybody wants sidewalks, nobody didn't want sidewalks, so, but I just think that it would be opening up a can of worms, I really do, and it could drastically change Old Lyme from what it is today, and...
Speaking to your concerns, though, Mona, I mean, Wilton, you've got the engine of New York that is populating Wilton. We're just too darn far away. We've got an abandoned foundation that has been uglier than sin that's been there for the 38 years I've lived in town. And I just think it's ugly and it's time to end that.
That was an incomplete development.
You know, that's private property.
Yeah.
But it's an absentee owner who doesn't give a damn about it, whether it's ugly or not. I mean, it's like, I think it's time to fix it.
But next thing you know, you could have every commercial kind of company trying to pour it.
Well,
I
but
just think we're too
that's
far
the
away.
reason why they want this overlay zone, architectural guidelines, so that it isn't, we don't want big boxes there. We don't want, you know, a bunch of,
Our current zoning, we would end up with convenience stores and gas stations right now. That's part of why this is all evolving, I feel. That, you know, there's enough people that I think I agree with that I don't want more gas stations and
Which reminds me, I believe there's still a lawsuit going on with the town from the application that was denied
Right.
for the gas station over here
to improve,
change
yeah.
itself into. So anyway, it's just things happen.
Well, and I think also,
But the concept is fine. The concept of the overlay zone, I can support. I just can't support a specific plan.
and I think Mona,
And I think zoning, by the way, is going to tear the guts of it apart.
Probably.
Zero lot lines on a state road probably will never fly. You know, that kind of thing, but they will.
See, the real issue...
I'm not zoning, but I'm just saying, I've seen enough.
I think the real issue is that once upon a time, we had a real Main Street in Old Lyme. It's called Lyme Street. Had a post office, had a grocery, you know, mom and pop grocery store.
Had dress shop,
And
Butcher
it got,
shop, right there, lots of
it
things.
basically got eviscerated and sterilized of any commercial presence.
right.
All right, and it's a quaint residential street, but it probably isn't the main street. That's the main street.
And if I flip that on you, I would say in those days when that happened, they thought that was the future, what they did over there. So now we're in that same,
Well, I think it's
it's
reversing a wrong, is really what it is.
well, and how people shop. People want a healthier community and a social community where they're walking, to different shops rather than parking. I mean, if you think about how people use the marketplace parking lot, they might go to Bowerbirds, park there, and then they're driving down to Big Y. So, you know, because it's not a pleasant, walkable.
no, I don't think that's so true. There's a big
I think people are
covered
just
path all the way.
lazy. The kids do it all the time.
Yeah.
They do. They walk
So,
it.
but to your point, Mona, I think what you described earlier is what the first go with zoning talked about, and that may have been in May or June. And then the committee, I think Dave Kelsey gave a lot of good feedback, and they worked out all those kinks so that now it's a much more flexible option that Halls Road committee members are all in support of.
I think that you, however, Mona, you raised another good point. And I've thought about this with respect to the shoreline, not just our Sound View area. If big money came in here, a la West Haven investors taking out the ragtag but fun amusement park, which was down on the shore there, and putting up, you know, in this case of an urban situation, multi-story condos, and it's still, and lots of nice beach walks, but it's still a wasteland, land-wise. Couple fun restaurants, but that was done with a snap of the fingers by outside interests who wanted to build large condos. So it ends up being this Corbusier-like tower setting surrounded by parking lots, which is not evil. It just isn't the same fun ragtag amusement park area that had developed as it did in New London many years ago. New London had the advantage or disadvantage of having the 38 hurricane come through. And the state and the city said, okay, no new housing, we'll put in the park. And that's why Ocean Beach Park is there. So what I'm getting at is large-scale outside interests could suddenly say, wait, we could put a lot of money in here and put in a little mini West Haven.
To be honest, one of the reasons they can't do that is because we don't have sewers and water.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of limitations.
I mean, that's a huge limitation,
Right.
which, I mean, that's,
It's a blessing in disguise.
yeah, it's a blessing in disguise, but that's part of the reason. I mean, my building because we have Dunkin' Donuts, that septic tank, it pumped weekly, sometimes in the middle of the day where I have client meetings. It's disgusting, but it does prevent anyone else from trying to build there.
Well, that's interesting, because I think that's the next thing that has to come down the pike, is water and sewer. And that's why I worry about the finances of all of
Well,
it.
and that is, it's
Money.
Yeah.
There's a $57 million bond issue on the ballot next week. There's a senior center one. I mean, there's just so much going on at once. I fear what we don't know.
Yeah, and sewer and septic in Old Lyme has always been, as part of planning, the Planning Commission, the problem or the responsibility of the property owner, not of the town. So that would be up to the property owner. The other thing is height restrictions.
Yeah,
and-
with the sewers, with the exception of the state DEP loving sewers and pumping water from a line 15 miles to New London and thinking that that's a good idea.
though the original plan for sewers was to put it in the Connecticut River. And Saybrook and Old Lyme formed a compact that said that wasn't going to happen,
Period. Yeah.
which set that back 30 years. But the point being, I guess a point that emerges from this, there are forces outside of town who would love to have water and septic because they get if you pardon me, the sand and gravel contract. I mean, something that is administered from on high. I think we have to watch out for that and give our zoning people a lot of strength to allow things to be done privately. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just wanted
Can
to
you
ask.
read back what you think your statement might be?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. Like, what do we think, what statement do we want to vote on? That's it. The EDC supports the zoning approval of the overlay district, allowing more flexible development on Halls Road to allow, maybe not even to allow, but I think we want to get in there, something about multi-use.
You wanted to address Mona's concern, maybe to allow existing property owners to continue with their designs, different word, I don't know, and for opportunity to improve or to enable mixed-use development. Be something like that.
And you could put a light manufacturing building in over there, according to what I'm hearing.
No.
I haven't read the updated detail. That's important.
Well, that's important. You cannot.
So I wouldn't go that far. I would just say that conceptually, we would support more flexible zoning for existing and future property owners along Halls Road. And that is accomplished with this overlay application.
I think one of
To
the
the
things
extent it's
that's a real stretch in the planning was at these townwide meetings from 2015 to 2018, one of the claims that the Halls Road Commission was making was that people wanted, outstandingly, they wanted apartments and townhouses, and that really wasn't true. People just wanted sidewalks and lights. That's really what people wanted. They wanted walkability. I think certain people wanted townhomes and apartments, but that was not the consensus. So, I mean, that's another thing that I just question, what is the motive for this? Is it just because somebody wants apartment buildings on Halls Road, so they want, like, do they want it? Do the owners want, I don't really know.
So my belief is that you could not build a big apartment complex on Halls Road, both with the design guidance and with the limitations of sewer and water. What we face in Old Lyme is that when people are ready to sell their 4-bedroom home and they'd like to stay in Old Lyme because they like the lifestyle here, they like their friends, there's nowhere to move to.
See, I disagree. I mean, there's smaller homes at the lake area, there's smaller homes at the beach area, there's lots of smaller homes people can move to.
Single-family homes.
Yeah.
There's a huge shortage of rental properties
Yeah, there are.
everywhere,
Yeah.
including
But do
here.
we
The whole
want
of
to
South-
be
yeah.
East Lyme or Old Saybrook?
I think we need to allow mixed use to allow residential.
See, I totally disagree. I mean, if there's mixed use, I just don't think it should be on Halls.
And I don't think that necessarily that an older house on the beach or by the lake that needs work is what people who are about to retire are looking for. And a lot of those aren't single-story.
And they're not affordable
And
because
not
they're on the water.
affordable.
But is
So-
that our problem? I mean, I don't
Yes and
understand
no.
why are we trying to address this problem? I mean, I think that have you guys driven in East Lyme and Old Saybrook lately? I mean, they just are building and building and building, and traffic is crazy.
Yeah.
There's plenty of places for people to live, and I'm not saying people should move out of here, but, we took my dad in. And a lot of people do that. Is it my place to supply a home to somebody else?
It's easy for you to say that because you're from Connecticut and that's where your family is, but that's, none of my kids live here and they're never going to. So
Why should I say all these businesses that are on Halls Road need to change and they need?
we're not saying they need
Not,
No.
they have an option to change if they wish
They
to.
choose to, and if there's a demand for it and someone decides to buy a property and renovate it, why shouldn't they be able to provide what we're saying is needed?
And I also think there's
I guess I just
a
didn't-
capacity and a limitation to what can be done as long as there are septics and private wells.
This is absolutely true.
You're never going to have,
You're not going to have an East Lyme.
Yeah, and that was a
Well,
point that Howard Margulies made to me. This is a way
play with.
of being uniquely ourselves and not just like East Lyme or just like Saybrook or just like another town. We want to differentiate ourselves and be about our small, have it look like the rest of Old Lyme. Have Halls Road look like small town feel with interaction and people walking and getting coffee and, Lime Street doesn't have an option to grow retail at all. Everything's supposed to revert back to residential. Our commercial zone is Halls Road. So how do we make that an attractive place to shop and enjoy?
I don't think anybody's going to walk into a store much in the next 15 years. It's all going to be e-commerce.
Which is the other part of it.
Yeah, you can make a point that retail and commercial space is really on a decline, and residential need is climbing. And
Right.
so our job is to grow the grand list, right? And so we want to encourage development, and right now it's residential development that's being grown, not
Right.
commercial.
Right, and
So allowing mixed use, I think, is critically important.
it is, you just have to fill the stores.
And the
Yeah,
nature,
you don't want empty storefronts.
That's my part,
Yeah.
and the nature of the mixed use that would evolve there is not going to burden the school system, which is 80% of the tax bill.
Yeah, it's going to be one and two room or bedroom places. I do want to say.
That's interesting,
I do
'cause-
sympathize.
Projecting an enormous growth number.
Are they?
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
Ridiculous. It's never been that high.
Interesting.
Historically.
John,
But-
what are you going to say?
I was going to say, I want to, once again, agree with Mona that we don't want to open the door to outside, I'll call it outside, it could be inside too, but outside development, which really takes unfair advantage of the new rules. And then suddenly they're begging the town to put up 6-story condos and to have their own septic systems and their own this and that. Now, I don't know what an investor would get out of that. I'll leave that to the real estate folks. But
Our zoning
The
board
rent-
is not gonna allow that, though.
Yeah.
Right. They have to, the investor has to make the cash flow viable for them to do it. And I don't know that that will happen given the constraints. So that's a nice safety net in a way, sadly, but it's
There was
difficult.
one other concern when this Halls Road thing came up a couple years ago, is that there's somebody out there, and I did not pull this information before I came tonight, so I can only give you like a little bit of an overview, but there was somebody out there that had a proposal where they wanted to make some trains going between some of these local towns, and Old Lyme was on that map. It had something to do with somebody over at the Day. And so that was a little bit strange to me.
What was it between
It was
the
like
trains?
they were trying to create a village feel, and Old Lyme was on this conceptual plan. And so it just seemed suspicious to me, like there was something weird going on behind the scenes, where there was already somebody talking about putting train to go to downtown Old Lyme and wanting to build it up like a little village.
I can't imagine that. I don't remember anything like that, and I was on the committee at one point.
Yeah, several years ago, there was a federal plan to
Reroute.
reroute the train.
The ARA.
Right.
That could be it, but that's long dead.
Well, there was just an article
So far.
recently about somebody who wanted to put a train stop back in Old Lyme. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
left to the editor.
At Point of Woods.
Yeah.
I mean, and the immediate response was, no, we can't do that because they'd have to build up the platforms would have to be built up to the level of the train, and we'd have to build something over the tracks.
The question is, why would you do that anyway?
Well, why? Because people would get on the train in Hartford and take it down to Old Lyme and get off at Soundview, and they would get off at Point of Woods.
Okay.
These were mini stations. They did the same thing in Niantic, which I witnessed with my own eyes as a tiny tot, not so tiny tot, but
A tot.
the train would stop in
I feel like
Niantic.
that ship sailed.
You know,
I didn't come up.
I mean,
Well, when you-
as a state, we're having enough trouble getting people to even use the existing trains we have right now to go to work, so.
Well, when you get on Metro North in New Haven to go into New York, if you happen to get the local at 6:30, you're going to be on the local for quite a while.
And it's
And
packed.
it stops, and it's packed. It stops everywhere.
But Shoreline East is not packed, and it used to be a lot.
Oh, east, up this way, yes.
Okay, can we,
From New London or
can we circle back to our statement we're
Yeah.
going to?
Thank you.
Tangent alert
Okay,
is my
the
office would say.
EDC supports the zoning commission's approval of the overlay district allowing more flexible development on Halls Road, including,
You said it backwards, that we support the proposal for the overlay district by Halls Road to zoning.
okay.
You know what I mean? Like you said, we support zoning's approval. I think it's the other way around. We support the proposal.
So we're encouraging zoning to approve the proposal, right?
How about that? Encourages zoning to approve the proposed overlay district, allowing,
No, I wouldn't go there.
well, what we had was allowing more flexible development on Halls Road.
Or enabling.
Enabling.
I would go with that and stop there, because I too, I'm scared of the West Haven developers deciding that we're a fair mark. Or
Don't laugh. I got
Hope Street and Niantic.
Today.
Pardon me?
I got a call from one the other day, looking for space.
If you've been driven down Hope Street in Niantic, as it near Pennsylvania Avenue in center of town, where there is, it seems to me, zero setback from the sidewalk, and at $400 and something thousand per 2 or 3 room condo, those are the newer ones. The other ones are special.
And they're all gone, flew off the shelf.
And they're all sold. Unbelievable.
In Niantic.
Yeah.
And they're putting up a new development that we just got the exclusive listing for, where Sips is going.
Who's
So they're
Sips,
already
the
in,
bakery.
aren't they?
Yeah, they
They're in, but we have the exclusive to get rid of them.
Okay.
Oh, for the condos above them?
And they're
Okay.
gonna be going.
Okay, rather than
Let's let-
marketing right now. The EDC encourages the zoning commission to approve the proposed overlay district enabling more flexible development on Halls Road. How about while allowing existing property owners to continue within conformity?
What was that?
Why don't you just say allowing them to have both residential and commercial zoning along Halls Road and let them decide what that means?
Enabling, okay.
Enable, that the overlay district will
Encourages
allow both
the
commercial.
zoning, okay, hold on. The EDC encourages the zoning commission to approve the proposed overlay district enabling,
Both residential and commercial properties on Halls Road. Property use.
Well, that does, I'm looking at the comparison charts of existing C30 and proposed, and, gas station is a commercial use, and
all right, so let's then.
that doesn't allow.
As proposed by the Halls Road District. The EDC encourages the zoning commission to approve the proposed overlay district as outlined by the Halls Road Improvement Committee.
As outlined in their application.
Application, yep.
I think we want to maximize individual freedom and yet keep out.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if that woman that owns that shopping center could plunk a gas station down up there.
And what would Bob Chapman have done? He would have completed the shopping center in the shape of a large U. And how do I know that? Because Rod Hartung did the second phase design, which did that integration. And then there was problems with water and stuff like that, and not enough money. And so that's why we have the Wailing Wall there.
Okay, so we're down to,
You better turn that page over.
the EDC encourages the zoning commission to approve the proposed overlay district as outlined by the Halls Road Improvement Committee. Application. Period, done?
Period, done.
Okay.
Well,
That's it.
right.
Oh.
Come to an agreement.
So, now we have to vote.
Make a motion.
So Sherry is making a motion to,
Approve the wording you just read.
yeah, okay, and I'll read it one more time for people. The EDC encourages the zoning commission to approve the proposed overlay district as outlined by the Halls Road Improvement Committee application. Perfect. Okay. All in favor? Oh, wait, second, yep. Okay, Joe's seconding it. Jen? Yes. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. We're going to need to get this down. So hands up if you're aye. I'm just making sure Jen has the names.
I don't want to abstain. I'll go with it. I don't like it, but I'll go with it.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
opposed.
Okay, Mona's opposed.
No, I vote yay.
Okay, and then abstentions. Any abstentions? No. Okay. The vote carries.
I think we have to keep our eye on this closely
Have a quorum.
so that
Yeah, we're
our
listening.
opinion is not bent into something that we didn't
Yeah,
intend.
I'm sorry, John, what?
I said, I think we have to keep our eye on what happened so that our vote is not twisted into something that we did not intend.
Right.
So we did not propose, as someone said to me at the very early stages of this, you're going to have 800 people down there in apartments. I said, where did you read that? Nowhere.
Well, actually, if they had a maximum number in there, maybe I would have felt more comfortable with that. But, I mean, just saying, this is an unlimited, maybe I would be more comfortable then. That's a good point, John. But I'm not comfortable with just saying, let's just change this and go willy-nilly, and next thing you know.
And it might be, is that,
Concept now, the woman that owns that area, she could convert that whole thing to apartments if she wants.
no, not with the overlay district. You have to retain a certain amount of retail, first floor retail at the front of the store.
She could convert 90% of it to apartments.
And they're not going to allow high rises, so there's no way you could get 800 people.
No, I used that because someone actually told that to me,
Yeah.
incensed. And I said, it did not say that, ever.
It's falling apart.
That would need so much work to make it
Oh, yeah, you'd have to
And
take it
again,
down.
going back to
Let's just
subject
go with what we got, but all I'm
subject would
saying is
prevent
just keep an eye on it.
anything major.
And perhaps, is it the planning commission who decides, like, maximum residents per square
That's zoning.
Part of the
Square month.
zoning code.
zoning code? Okay. Okay.
Parking spaces, there's multiple factors.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Septic
It's
parking.
ridiculous.
Okay, all right, thank you, everyone. Shoreline Gateway update.
Okay, there was no meeting, it was postponed, so not a whole lot I can report.
And when is the next meeting? Is it just like next month
It's the third Thursday, I believe,
of November? Okay.
which is Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving? Oh, all right, we'll have to see what they're planning
No,
then.
Thanksgiving is the fourth Thursday.
Always.
It's always the fourth Thursday. It can never be the 21st.
So I guess
Oh, whose
the third
birthday?
Thursday.
1, 2, 3, yeah, Thanksgiving is the 24th, so third Thursday is the 17th. So you'll be meeting this month, very good.
Yes, it is the 17th, I guess.
Okay.
Well, whenever I drive down, can I make a comment about this? When I drive down there, which I do, not just down there, but I drive along Route 156, I start to say to my companion, look at this. And she says, be quiet, I've heard it all before.
Oh, the Shoreline Gateway.
However, I noticed that the grass in front of the Hollywood restaurant has been cut and looks better, like they're serious about selling
You mean
it.
Cherry Stone?
No, the Hollywood restaurant, which is down opposite Hartford Avenue. The Italian
Yeah,
American
there's
Club.
an owner there.
It used to be the Hollywood restaurant, and then it became the Italian American Club, and then they turned it from facing the street to turned it sideways.
I don't even know.
It's been empty for 50-odd years.
Daryl's building is sort of on.
I am almost never in that part of the world.
Okay, and the Gulf Station is now on the market
Ooh. Here, the Gulf Station.
Which one is that?
on Shore Road.
Yeah.
Okay, I never go down there.
Yeah, drive by it every day. Okay, our budget. In November, we are now in November, the Finance Commission seeks out budget requests from the different commissions and boards to start the process, which they eventually narrow down and vote on in May, April, May. And so I will be submitting our request for the fiscal 23-24 budget for the EDC later this month. We are quite comfortable right now. And I'll just run through what we have here. I'm going to give one of these to Jen as well. Sure? Okay, so...
Here, I'll pass
Oh,
it.
thank you. So we have the regular budget, which you see in print, and that's what I printed out. The first item on that list is our clerk, who is very valuable to us. And we have supplies, postage, contracted services. That can be anything from a printer to a designer to any number of services, and then miscellaneous. We also have carryover from previous years. We have, so our budget for this current year is $4,136.
What is it, I'm sorry?
It's this bottom number, 4,136. Carryover, what you see in my handwriting, carryover from previous years. We have $7,000 still carried over as a follow-up to that CERC work that you all had done. Survey, the final report, and we can use that money to continue the work that Advanced CT, previously known as CERC, wanted us to do. So that could include things like printing
Or just finishing it.
yeah, the new business report.
Yeah.
Or
Guide.
Thank you. It could include strategic planning for the EDC, which could be interesting at some point. So, but it has to be related to what Advanced CT told us their recommendations were. That was not a strategic plan that they gave us. That was a set of recommendations.
Did they recommend a strategic plan?
It says in there somewhere, I don't remember exactly where, but I remember seeing the next step would be a strategic plan.
Did they talk at all about marketing? I'm just trying to think, with or without a successful chamber, could we ask for, we're not allowed to do that. Can we do, never mind.
So not with that line item. So with that 7,000, that has to do with advanced CT related planning work, I would call it.
If we can't find things to spend that on, do we have to give that
We
money
give it
back to
back,
the
yeah,
town?
unless we have it carried over again.
Which this has been carried over for how long? Like a couple of years?
Back, or they're not gonna.
Well, let me just run through the other line items. The other is $900 from this past year. And that is because those brochures that I did were very late in June. They didn't get into last year's budget, so they carried it over to cover some of the marketing costs that we had late in the year. Then we have now received our ARPA grant. We put in for an ARPA grant to help us market Old Lyme. So that includes a pop-up tent for like Midsummer Festival and a customized tablecloth.
What's that acronym mean?
American Recovery Plan Act.
It's a COVID thing.
Thank you.
Yes. The town money. We put in for professional photography. We have wonderful photographers in town that take beautiful landscape photos that have been generously shared with us, but we really need photos of people doing things. Kids on the carousel, people having ice cream, people, hiking. So having some actual professional photography would be very helpful. And then we also put in for a rack card design and printing.
So none of this has been spent on?
We've just gotten it, yeah.
So you
no.
get a tent for Midsummer's Festival?
No, we used Matt Ward's personal tent. And then, so this would have our logo on it.
Yeah.
And
So these grants just got literally,
this week, I signed for it yesterday.
I did one for a group I'm with like
Right.
2 weeks ago. So yeah, they're just now coming out.
And we have, 2 years or more to spend it, to actually use it. So,
The quality.
and they have to be used for what we thought we wanted them for. I mean, we wrote this back in March, I think. So,
The quality of the handouts, and I'll use the word carefully, marketing material, were excellent. And
Yeah.
designed
good job.
for free.
Huh?
Designed for free.
As well as the website, right?
Yeah. Well, the website, the Wix cost was like $600, but for 3 years. But it's for multiple years, so, yeah. So we can talk more in the coming meetings about what we're doing, but what we need to decide is what we should put in for 23-24. We could just ask for a flat continuation of what we asked for this past year, which we're feeling like we are very comfortable now with our budget. If we were to cut back how much we needed for next year, who's to say we could bring it back up to our past amounts in future years? So I'd like to hear your thoughts on.
I wouldn't increase it because I think we're going to have a hard enough time spending all the money that we currently have.
I agree,
Who's paying
yeah.
for the website, the QR code-driven website? Who pays for that?
That was back in a year ago when Edie was on this committee or commission. The EDC paid for that last year, and there are no other expenses related to it.
She said
It was a 3-year.
payment.
So we do it in connection with the Arts District, But there's no cost to it. We're using free labor and volunteer labor, I should say, and
Well, maybe we should put a little something in case we have a need to hire someone or contract out for a special project or a new redesign or ongoing content and upgrades. You know, nothing is free.
The 2,000 that we have in contracted services would cover that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think
and
so.
we haven't
We
spent
just
it
direct it
already,
that way.
so, yeah,
Yeah. Not to have money.
You said the balance is 1,200 remaining.
But for the following year, we could put that money
The
towards
new
it.
2,000.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And so the 727 that we've spent in that line item was probably the rec cards that didn't get put into.
It's the brochures, it's, the postcards, all that kind of thing.
But the things that we
Right.
brush up against occasionally, like walking tour guides and bicycle path or recommended bicycle routes, that we really haven't done.
Well, for lack of funds to pay
Right.
a
Yes.
party, because one thing that I was going to say, not that I want the money to burn a hole in our pocket,
Right.
but I left off where I had engaged the consultant. I was the one that kind of brought them to town. That's done all the Halts Road programming, and they also did all of Soundview. And I had them develop a Connecticut. I called it the Connecticut. I called it the Riverway Trail, which was a combined Blueway and Greenway. It was to get from the old Baldwin Bridge abutment, which is now called a scenic overlook, that nobody goes to because it's inaccessible. It's not easy.
It's hard to find.
It's hard to find. And I had them route a hiking trail from there under the Baldwin Bridge and then come around by that sound wall that separates the now being redeveloped piece of property that abuts the southern exit off of I-95, and then threading back to 156, then Ferry Road to the DEEP, and then conceptually trying to parallel the Amtrak right-of-way, which separates us from the most magnificent view you could ever want to have, and then ultimately ending up at the Smith Great Island Boat Launch or whatever.
Yeah.
And one thing that has evolved is the subdivision that is now in construction, with that property abutting the south end of the highway. There's actually sort of a turning circle in the middle of it. It almost could provide a pathway, and there's a property for sale that abuts that, between that and Ferry Road. So it's almost like we could almost create a biking trail, walking trail from the scenic overlook all the way to the DEEP, or at least the Ferry Road, potentially. But it needs to be, scoped out and put on paper.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Joe, there is a lot of support in town for making this a more walkable, bikeable town. And I think it needs its own committee. I hate talking about more committees,
I know.
but there needs to be a group of people.
Yeah, to get it where it got was, I put a couple of hundred hours of time
Yes,
into
you
getting
did.
it where it got. And then the last charge that I had for the consultant was to go find grant money to further this. And they fell down on it, basically.
So to further that cause, you should engage the Shoreline Greenway Trail. They have 30 miles of trail from Branford to Madison, and they're looking to expand into Clinton, but there's no reason why they can't go further than that. They get grant funds from the state and from the federal government.
And I did get grant funding to pay for,
Yeah.
I actually got grant funding to pay
There's
for
a
the consultant.
lot of funding coming from, especially DEEP, because they're encouraging like heck
Yes.
all
And
this walkability
and-
and nature trails.
incorporating the trail was tying to the Baldwin Bridge pedestrian path, which is actually considered part of, a potential linked trail system. So I tried to rally some additional support, because I did reach an endpoint where like, okay, I'm tired, I need to hand this
Yeah.
off.
Well, the Shoreline Greenway Trail is actually an organization. It's a nonprofit that,
Do we have anybody in town that's participating and motivated? That's the question.
yeah, and so each town that they participate in does have like a community leader, so you do need to have that, but they're pretty...
What's it called again?
It's the Shoreline Greenway Trail?
Now,
I've been on it and parts of it, it's really pretty cool.
I've-
Yeah, in Madison, it's,
Yeah,
yeah,
Hammonasset, it's
By
awesome.
Hammond-
yeah, it really is.
yeah.
But is that, does
Bunch of Guilford.
that fall under this commission review?
It would not.
Yeah, I think having some sort of a committee to improve walkability and bikeability
Yeah,
in town.
the intent that I had from an economic perspective was it would foster potential employment for our young people, during the fair weather seasons. Because what I wanted to have was a combination, ride your bike to Ferry Road and the DEEP, pick up a kayak and kayak back. If you're more ambitious, go down to the Smith Neck boat launch and kayak back, or vice versa, and have, young people shuttling all that stuff to kind of keep that conduit flowing. As well as the bike shop and the Black Hall Marina would benefit from this, because they would be handling the rentals. So that's kind of the grand plan.
So maybe we can put our thinking caps on and come back to you next month with
Yeah.
thoughts on using some of the funding that we already have, especially that advanced CT funding of $7,000.
Right, so, maybe we should vote on this. Should I put in, for the same amount of money we got last year, and of course, we would be fiscally responsible and not just spend money to spend money. We
Right.
will,
No, put it
we'll
to
be
good
giving
use.
back any money we feel the EDC cannot use to, Old Lyme's.
Right.
I make a motion to put in for the same amount of money, that we did last year, and don't leave a dime on the table, with finance. Let them give you what we can get.
That's MJ's motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
John, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great. I will do that, and then we'll work out the specifics. Thank you.
Just to reference the Shoreline Greenway, is Guilford a part of that?
So interestingly, it skips Guilford
Oh, I was wondering.
at the moment.
I asked my brother, who's a WCPA guy and knows all these.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a town politics thing, I think, in
It is
Guilford.
a town politics thing in Guilford. Yeah, the Greenway Trail doesn't want to go along Route 1, and that's really the only place that it could
Right, I
go,
was gonna
because
say, where would they
the
go?
people that live on the shoreline
Next.
don't want it to go through their backyard, so.
But
it-
like
it's-
us, they have these dangerous roads. I mean,
Route
who
1.
would-
Route 140.
No, even the ones up along Mulberry Beach in there.
Yeah.
It's like,
They're
who would
narrow.
ride a bike there? You
Yeah.
get killed.
Well, I see people riding bikes there all the time when I visit my brother, and I think they're going to get killed.
Yep. So for the purposes of our recorded meeting, let's just wrap up, if we can, with any other new or additional business.
I'll just throw out, John had sent out about the Eastern Connecticut Chamber of Commerce on the offshore wind, and I reached in my pocket and paid for it and went to that.
Oh.
I'll try to give you a quick report, because I'm kind of interested in what's happening with that. So the event was sponsored by John Johnson, who's, I believe, still an Old Lyme resident.
Wow, okay.
A lot of political attendees. Everybody was there, including Bloomy. The Port Authority Executive Director, Ulysses Hammond, talked about how the Port Authority must support, the Port Authority's been under a lot of scrutiny, if you will, from the papers if you've been following it, but anyway, he said that the Port Authority must support the small harbors of Connecticut, which there are 35 small harbors, and the state contributes funding for dredging and marina maintenance, so that's something that does affect us. I thought economically, if there's no dredging, our marinas are kind of kaput, both Black
4 Mile River
4 Mile in
particularly.
particular. He said that the Connecticut Port Authority's goal is to solidify New London's strategic position in offshore wind, which, because of the solid workforce, which includes us, we're part of that. So anyway, so there's currently 3 major wind projects going on: Connecticut, New York, and Rhode Island, that will be supported out of the revised state pier in New London. And what I thought that was particularly interesting was that the major consultant who's doing the engineering for the state pier, for the state pier project, but also will probably pick up work for the offshore wind farms, is a company out of Wallingford that's really a Kansas City headquartered large architect engineer. And that project manager talked about how he was shocked at how Connecticut is doing nothing to recruit major global players that are involved in the offshore wind industry. He goes, there's no point person, there's no go-to person. He's had, because he's actually from the UK, so they prudently hired an engineer with a lot of expertise doing offshore wind in Europe, where it's really been booming for decades now. So he said that there are European companies who would like to take a footprint over here, and they're looking at New York. And he's telling them, why don't you go to Connecticut instead? It's lower cost, and it fits in with the build-out of the state pier as a wind servicing
More
thing.
continental shelf, too.
Whatever. Yeah. So I thought, and I could go on, there's quite a bit more.
Did you give them my card?
No, did he say that from the podium, or did he say that to you
No, that was from the podium.
He spoke, okay.
He flat out said that he was really surprised that there's no point person, and I'm thinking, for crying out loud, it's like, we've got a state economic development enterprise.
Yep.
And he actually publicly spoke about how they're looking at New York, and he said to him, hey, they were looking at New York, but he says, if you go with New York, whatever New York does, New Jersey competes with, and they're both big players. Why don't you come to a nice neutral place like Connecticut? Now, selfishly, their position is in Wallingford, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they would much rather have participating players that could use their engineering services, closer to home than not.
Well, that's what Advanced CT does. They have a huge staff, and so they should be all over it. David Lehman should be all over it. And there's a guy at CCAT that actually specializes in offshore wind, so he should be all over it too. And I don't know if they are, but...
Well, don't let them be. Why don't you tell us what their needs are, and we could find them a little space right here.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Like, don't open your mouth to any of those people.
The company that he mentioned was Siemens from Germany.
Right.
I'm thinking, we've already got the microphone company, Sennheiser.
Sennheiser.
Right?
Yeah.
They speak the same language.
Yeah.
Get them to move to the industrial park.
Well, that was my thought exactly. I mean, there's so much space up there. There's that building where Pfizer used to be. There's space for them.
So my whole thought is that, how do we convert this into actionable outreach? And I've been thinking about that, because that's something we should
We write a proposal to them, is what we do. I'll sit with you, we'll write it. You can do the engineering side, and I'll do the real estate side, and, Cheryl will come in and tell us what the big wigs are using for buzzwords, and we'll lure them, right? And not because she has insider information, but because we'll just lure them right down here.
I mean,
and tell them it's like 45 minutes up the pike to Wallingford.
I'm sure you could find a contact.
And it goes beyond that. We're midway between New York and Boston.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And 20 minutes from New London, where the pier is.
Yes.
Right, and we send all our shit there.
Not yet.
Literally.
Not yet, only some of it.
You can blow it over to Europe for all we care. So, no, seriously, Joe, why don't you call me, and we'll scope out a proposal.
Well, we probably should talk to CCAT if this is their responsibility.
But we want it here.
Yeah, but CCAT is not in the business of real estate or placing people. They're just there for resources, for support. But I can certainly send the information that I sat through a webinar with Advanced CT. Did just last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was a presentation by CCAT with all the people that they have to help businesses, and one of them specialized in offshore wind. So I'll get my hands on that and send it to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah,
Send it to me.
we've got the
So you have a contact.
the brain, we've got...
Because I'm willing to connect CCAT with the speaker from the
Great.
presentation.
Yep.
And maybe help that along in any way that I can. bring it to, come to Papa. So, all right.
Great. Thank you, Joe.
That's exciting.
Anything else other than a couple bits of housekeeping? Our December meeting needs to end by 6:15 next month. I'm sure that's very sad for you all.
Yes.
To allow the Zoning Board of Appeals to meet right after us. The first Wednesday of December. And then our February meeting, I really had to put this in here because I will forget if I don't mention it this month. But we're going to try to remember that in February, our meeting will be held in the mezzanine conference room because of another conflict in this room, and we will be unable to have a phone-in option or record the meeting because there isn't that technology upstairs.
Yep.
All right, is there anyone on the phone who would like to make a public comment? We don't have anyone in our audience here in public. Is there
No,
anyone
thank
on the
you.
phone? Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Not this time.
Okay, thank you. I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. And I'll second it.
Okay, Sherry and Jean, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, abstain. All right, thank you and have a good night.
Jessica,